We know going to the gym is good for you, yet we can get pretty creative in talking ourselves out of actually going. This can be for many reasons, but there is a very common one that has to do with how you think. So if we want to finally stick to our fitness goals, then we should manage this as best as we can. And by the end of this video, you'll learn how to do just that. Getting started at the gym is actually a very straightforward process. After the sales rep try to upsell you on a bunch of services, like the amazing service of a gym bro handing you a complimentary towel after he touched a bunch of sweaty gym equipment, you're left with only really a handful of things to figure out. Things like your program, how to use the sweaty gym equipment, and which corners of the locker room to avoid the old naked guys. And as long as we go to the gym consistently, we should eventually achieve our goals or at least stay physically active. Yet, for some of us, we just don't seem to do it. Again, something that might explain this has to do with how we view ourselves or our self-perception. Now in fitness, we usually just stick to talking about good old exercise and nutrition, but I think it's becoming very clear that psychology can play an equally important role, especially to improve things like self-perception and consistency. But as fitness experts, we just kind of say, you just gotta be more consistent without ever actually saying how. And that's my goal with this video. Obviously, I'm not a psychology expert and I merely cosplay as a fitness expert, but I can provide you information on psychological concepts relevant to fitness through, as usual, the use of science. So if you want to see more content like this one, then please let me know in the comments. But let's get back to our main topic. How we view ourselves obviously can impact everything we do, but there is one specific concept of self-perception that especially applies to our gym experience. This concept is known as the spotlight effect. Have you ever gone to the gym and felt like everyone was staring at you and judging you just because you were trying to do an exercise you never did before? And that judgment made you feel embarrassed and you might even say, forget the gym since all these people make me feel like crap. But unless it was super duper obvious, did you actually notice that people were genuinely staring at and judging you? If not, then chances are you are experiencing the so-called spotlight effect, a cognitive bias where we believe people are paying attention to us more than they actually are. This is actually quite a normal thing to experience. Since we view the world through only one perspective, our own, we tend to assume that this same awareness stretches to people around us. So say when we believe that we're not good at something like the deadlift, which I can still relate to after doing it for 10 plus years, we tend to believe that other people also notice how shitty my deadlift is. This then leads us to feeling embarrassed and anxious. Yet if we think about it, this stemmed entirely from our own false egocentric belief of being in the spotlight. And the science shows that the spotlight effect can be quite strong. In one study, when subjects had to wear a t-shirt with the face of a famous person on it and then walk into a classroom, they believed that about half the students in the classroom noticed their t-shirt. In reality, it was closer to just 8%. That means that our own perspective of being observed by others was 6 times higher than the amount of people that actually did observe us. Many other similar experiments found very similar outcomes. And it applies to not just estimating the number of people observing or judging us, but also the emotions we experience during it. We just tend to believe that people pay attention to us more than they actually do. We then experience stronger feelings of anxiety and embarrassment from that belief. Now apply this to you going to the gym. If you really think that half the people were looking at you, it probably was just the one gym bro that wanted to hand you a sweaty towel. This is the basic gist of the spotlight effect. Now let's talk about what we can do to avoid falling into it. First, we just have to acknowledge that the spotlight effect affects not only you, but everyone else. Again, it's natural to feel like we are the center of the universe because we can only see the world through our own eyes. But just like the MCU, we kind of live in a multiverse where everyone is the center of their own universes and no one really has any time to check out other universes. Sure, some rare folks want to act like Doctor Strange and stare at you, but if they truly are judging you for trying to get in shape, then that only reflects poorly on them and no one else. So treat them and their judgments like you should treat kale and toss them in the trash. Another strategy is creating a mental distance from yourself. If the problems with the spotlight effect is caused by our own egocentric biases, then it might help if we just imagine how we appear to others from an outside perspective. This allows us to separate ourselves from our egocentric perceptions, both visually and emotionally, and observe it through a neutral party. In a 2016 experiment, researchers found that when college subjects imagined themselves wearing a shirt with a famous person on it while 40 students walked past them, if they were told to imagine this scenario through the eyes of another person versus through their own eyes, they believed that significantly fewer students would notice their shirt. In other words, adopting a third-person perspective significantly reduced the spotlight effect. On top of that, it also led to subjects having lower feelings of embarrassment of the shirt they wore. Now again, apply this to going to the gym. Next time you feel like you're being judged by others, take a step out of your own head and imagine yourself working out from an outside point of view. You'll probably notice that even in your own imagination, the people around you don't really care about what you're doing. And from this perspective, you'll also likely notice those feelings of anxiety and embarrassment becomes a lot weaker. When you experience these changes to your visual and emotional perspectives, it might very well be what you need to keep the spotlight effect in check and make you much more consistent with going to the gym. And one final tip to manage the spotlight is to just wait a bit before you start working out. Once again, going back to the first experiment, but this time the researchers had subjects put on a shirt with a famous person on it that they felt embarrassed to wear. They also added one small change to see if it impacted subject predictions. In this case, when subjects were allowed to wait about 15 minutes before stepping into the classroom with the other students in it, they ended up believing fewer students noticed their shirt compared to subjects going immediately into the classroom after putting on the shirt. In other words, just waiting a short time before fully engaging in a potentially embarrassing situation, the spotlight effect was reduced. So when we go to the gym, maybe just walk around the gym for about 10 to 15 minutes before you start working out if you need to alleviate some anxiety or concerns of being embarrassed. This also gives you a chance to observe others, without judgment of course, and you'll probably notice that virtually everyone is indeed locked into their own world and not paying much attention to anyone else. And that's the exact scenario you will encounter once you do start working out yourself. So that's me shining a little bit of a spotlight on the spotlight effect, a cognitive bias born entirely through the way we shape our own views and thoughts into others around us. It's not the only bias or psychological experience that might cause us to be less consistent with the gym, but it definitely is a big one. But if you do want me to cover some of that other stuff or just more mental health and psychology related stuff in general, then please let me know in the comments. It's definitely something I think deserves more of the spotlight in fitness. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, then please give it an egocentric thumbs up and share it with your spotlight-loving friends. Subscribe for more and let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you for watching and don't forget to get your protein.